Rare supercars. It's not uncommon to find old cars in garages, but in 2018 a broke student was blown away after exploring his grandmother's garage. The student went to visit his grandmother's mansion. The house was incredibly old, dirty and cluttered, but when the student arrived he realized he'd never been in the garage. But inside he found something he never expected his elderly grandmother to own. There was a silver 1981 Lamborghini Countach in the garage, and parked next to it a red Ferrari 308. Together these cars are worth more than $450,000. Not only are these supercars, but they're very rare ones too. The red Ferrari 308 was used by Tom Selleck in Magnum P.I., and the silver Lamborghini Countach was the same model Leonardo DiCaprio drove in The Wolf of Wall Street. These two amazing cars had been sitting in this grandmother's garage collecting dust for decades. They had been owned by her husband who passed away. The broke student who made this discovery said that it hurt his soul that the cars had been abandoned like this. But at the same time, this find was so incredible and rare that he was overjoyed. This just goes to show you should always check your grandparents' garage. You never know what amazing treasures could be hiding inside it. Mafia Mansion. In 2020, York Regional Police in Toronto, Canada raided a gigantic mansion. On the 2.6-acre property sits a $9 million mansion. But as soon as the police raided this mansion, the owners abandoned it. That's because it was being used as a full-service black market luxury casino. This underground luxury casino is straight out of a James Bond movie. It was operated by a mafia in Canada. Inside were many big illegal gambling games. Wealthy gamblers would flock here from all over the world, primarily millionaire and billionaire Chinese businessmen. They had baccarat, poker and slot machines. All of it was unregulated and you could bet very high stakes. And of course not pay any taxes on your winnings. Because of COVID-19 restrictions, many normal casinos had to close. But this led to black market casinos exploding in popularity. The gigantic mansion had armed security and guard dogs roaming the grounds. Gambling was underway as the mansion was raided. This meant that many of the gamblers and the owners of the mansion had to flee and abandon it. They left a lot of money laying around which was confiscated by the feds. But this was worth it for them as many of them avoided arrest. The gigantic mansion even had a restaurant and bar. The restaurant even served some illegal items, for example, shark's fin. The menu was in English and Chinese because of the high number of very rich Chinese clients who went to this casino. Inside the mansion's bar was $1.5 million of high-end booze. This included more than $4,000 of high-end wine. There were also many defense items too. Criminal Mansion. It seems that crime really does pay, but eventually the law catches up to most criminals, and this means they have to leave their life of luxury behind, either because they end up in prison with their goods confiscated, or because they have to abandon their mansions when fleeing the country. A few years back, a Spanish YouTuber named It's Me Antho explored an abandoned mansion. It was very clear that the previous owners of this mansion had left in a hurry. There were dishes still stacked in the dishwasher. There was also an empty safe which likely had money and passports inside it. And there were also bullets scattered around the house. Inside the garage was even an abandoned car. The red sports car would have been worth a lot of money, so this suggests that whoever lived in this house needed to get out fast. Cash. Sometimes one of the most amazing finds in abandoned mansions is cold hard cash. That's what one urban explorer discovered in an abandoned mansion a few years back. An urban explorer named Freaktography entered an abandoned mansion in Canada one day. Inside were many unusual things. This included a hospital bed and also many family photos. There were also many possessions in the house. This would be normal in most houses, but normally when a house is abandoned, all of the possessions are removed. As the explorer was going through the house, he found a bag, and when he opened it, his jaw dropped. Inside were dozens of rolls of cash. There were thousands of dollars in neatly wrapped bundles. The money was American rather than Canadian. In most cases, people would simply take this money. But that is not what this urban explorer did. Freaktography has a motto when he explores abandoned mansions, That is to take nothing but photos and leave nothing but footprints. Instead, he amazingly tracked down a family member of the owner of this mansion. At first, the family member was upset that he'd got inside the house. But eventually, the family member realized that the urban explorer had good intentions. She gave the urban explorer a guided tour of the mansion, and that's when he presented her with the money. Ferrari Daytona. Outside one abandoned mansion in Spain, someone saw something strange one day. Poking out of the bushes appeared to be a red piece of metal. But when they walked closer, they realized that hidden in some bushes was an abandoned Ferrari Daytona. This car really had rusted, which was sad to see. It's not known why the mansion or car were abandoned. Ferrari Daytonas can sell for up to $600,000, but it's likely that this car would need to be refurbished a lot before it's sold. This was posted online and went viral. Many people in the comments encouraged the photographer to simply take the car and restore it himself. But as of now, no one is sure what happened to this abandoned Ferrari Daytona. It's sad that this was abandoned and left to rust. But maybe one person will take this car, fix it, and make a lot of money. Or maybe just drive around in it themselves. $1 Million Comic Book. The most rare and valuable comic book in the world is Action Comics #1. It is the first ever comic book to feature Superman. It is valued at $3.25 million. And back in 1997, it was bought by actor Nicolas Cage. But 3 years later in 2000, the comic book was stolen from Nicolas Cage's house. But then, 11 years later in 2011, it turned up again. The stolen comic book was found in an abandoned storage locker in California, USA. No one is sure how it got there. Some speculated that selling it would cause too much media attention, and therefore the thief would be caught if he tried to sell it. So that's why it was simply abandoned. Rare coins. Sometimes it's better to find coins than big bundles of cash. That's because if you find the right rare coins, they can be worth a fortune. That's exactly what was found in one abandoned mansion in Pennsylvania. The house had been totally abandoned for 2 decades. But one day an expert went inside the house to find any valuables. Inside he discovered many rare coins going back to the 1820s. These were worth more than $200,000 in total. Many of these coins were just around the house. But there was also a hole in the wall which contained tens of thousands of dollars of rare coins. Classic Bugatti. One day a very mysterious and reclusive scientist named Dr. Harold Carr passed away. His relatives went over to his mansion to sort through his belongings. But that's when inside his garage they made an amazing find. They found an amazing 1937 classic Bugatti. This was one of only 17 in the world. This had been in the millionaire's garage collecting dust for 50 years. Amazingly, this car is worth nearly $10 million. It just goes to show that you should really explore every single crack and crevice of your home. You really never know what you might find, and it might just make you a millionaire. Lost civilization. In 2011, satellites over the Sahara Desert caught something amazing. Images appeared to show many fortresses buried under the Sahara sand. There were over 100 fortresses and castles detected by the satellites. These were found in southwestern Libya. An ancient lost civilization built and lived in these. They were built between 1 and 500 AD. The people who built them were called the Garamantes. This was an ancient yet very advanced society. There's very little known about the Garamantes, and they're very mysterious. While Gaddafi ruled Libya, they were unexplored and also not reported to the international community. But when his regime fell, archaeologists went and explored the ruins. In late 2011, there was a large expedition to this area. Researchers and archaeologists found pottery samples and remains of buildings. Researchers were amazed that the ruins had a great state of preservation. Amazingly, they had technology which was even better than the Roman Empire. This has led to some speculation that ancient aliens could have been involved. They had high walls, large homes, cemeteries, and irrigation systems. The civilization had very impressive metallurgy. They also had very high quality textiles and even their own writing system. How do you explain this advanced civilization existing all those years ago? Lost Cemetery. In 2000, some archaeologists were excavating a part of the Sahara Desert in Niger. The dig was led by archaeologist Paul Sereno. They were trying to find dinosaur skeletons, but found none. However, what they did find was a massive lost cemetery. It's believed this cemetery is 10,000 years old. Strangely, buried with the humans were crocodiles and fish. It's believed the site was inhabited by two different groups at two different times. One group first created the cemetery. That group then moved on, and 1,000 years later, another one came. They then kept the cemetery up and continued to use it. Along with the skeletons, the archaeologists also found many remains of lost civilizations. They found arrowheads, harpoons, and even jewelry. Mysterious material. In a large area of the Sahara Desert in western Egypt, there have been many bizarre materials found. This is known as Libyan desert glass. These have been found over 3,000 years. This is as large desert dunes shift and move around. Libyan desert glass was even found in King Tut's breastplate. This was in the form of a scarab beetle, but it's still very mysterious as to how Libyan desert glass exists. This is because it's made of pure silica. This can only form in temperatures of nearly 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. One theory is this material formed around 29 million years ago. This was following a meteorite impact. They believe this to be the case because of reedite found in the Sahara Desert. Reedite is a material which can only come from meteors in space. Crocodile monster. The Sahara Desert used to be full of lakes and rivers, and dwelling in those were monster crocodiles. In 2016, archaeologists found the largest ever crocodile to exist. This was in modern-day Tunisia. They found the skeleton of this in 120 million year old rock. The creature was named Macamosaurus rex. It was around 30 feet in length, and it's said to have weighed around 3 tons. That's around 1.5 elephants. Lake Mega Chad. No, this one has nothing to do with the Chad meme. Instead, this was a massive lake. It was around 140,000 square miles, and it was located in modern-day Central Africa. Here's a visualization I made to show you the scale of this massive lake. Amazingly, this was only discovered in 2015 by British scientists. First swimming dinosaur. The Spinosaurus aegyptiacus was the first ever swimming dinosaur in the world. It was 50 feet long, and it weighed around 7 tons. It lived between 95 and 100 million years ago, and it's known as the strangest dinosaur to ever live. It had a large tail which it used to move around in the water. It was basically a dinosaur trying to build a fishtail, and it was a big step in the evolution of dinosaurs. Prehistoric megalake. In 2010, researchers found evidence of a prehistoric megalake. This existed 250,000 years ago. This was found using radar images of the Sahara Desert. Nabta stones. The Nabta Playa stone circle can be found in southern Egypt. This area used to be occupied by Neolithic nomadic tribes. 6,000 years ago, these people made this interesting stone circle. These stones are 12 feet in diameter, and they predate Stonehenge in the UK. It is astronomically aligned, and it's said to be the first of its kind. But it's still a mystery as to what this was for. Some believe it could have been used for navigation or telling the time. Lost city. For years, many believed that of the northern coast of Egypt was a lost underwater city. The city was named Thonis, or as the ancient Greeks called it, Heraklion. For a long time, many believed the city was simply a myth. That's because it was only mentioned by Greek authors, and we had no real evidence for it. But in 2012, this all changed. Near Abu Kurbay, an amazing find was found underwater. Researchers found the ancient city of Thonis. People were stunned as many believed it was mythical this entire time, but it turns out the city was real. The city was found at a depth of 164 feet. Divers found gigantic, mysterious statues. These statues were of ancient Egyptian deities. They also found ancient stone columns, and on them were Egyptian and Greek inscriptions. They also found sphinxes and gold treasure. All of the artifacts have not yet been recovered. Because of the type of water, these relics were in quite good condition. One archaeologist diver named Frank Goddio found an amazing discovery too. He found a 6-foot, 2-meter granite slab in the underwater city. And on the slab, the city's name, Heraklion, had been carved. Many artifacts from the city are still hidden in the waters. And according to experts, it will take at least 200 years to retrieve and study them all. The mysterious thing is, no one knows what happened to Heraklion. We're not sure how this ancient city ended up underwater. Some scientists say that an earthquake was to blame, while others say a massive tsunami wiped out the city and dragged it under the sea. It's funny, for many years people said that Heraklion was just a myth, but in 2012 they were proven wrong. Maybe the same thing will happen to Atlantis. Many believe Atlantis is simply a myth. But you never know, it could be hidden under the sea just waiting for someone to come along and discover it. Tank. During the Second World War, a German tank and its crew disappeared. This happened in 1944, but in 2007 an amazing discovery was made in the Baltic Sea. On the 26th of May 2007, a tank was pulled from the sea. The tank was a Jagdpanzer 38. It weighed a massive 16 tons. Mysteriously, the tank had no upper plates or rear armor. Inside, the belongings of the crew were found. The German tank was pulled onto a beach in Poland. To this day, it's a mystery why this tank ended up in the sea, and what happened to the tank's crew is also unknown as well. There is a theory that the tank was abandoned by the German soldiers. This was so that it could not be used by the Soviet army. But if that's the case, then what happened to the crew? Eventually, the tank was repainted its original green military colors, and it can now be found at the Museum of the Polish Army in Warsaw. We may never know how this 16-ton tank ended up in the sea, let alone what happened to its crew. The Baltic anomaly. In 2011, sonar equipment found something strange on the Baltic Sea floor. This was between Sweden and Finland. The object looked man-made. It was 60 meters in diameter and a very peculiar shape. Its shape was very similar to the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. Some believe this was a secret military experiment that crashed into the sea. Others believe it may be the turret of an old battleship. And of course, some speculate it could be a UFO. But despite all the theories, no one really knows what this is. Some believe it's made of stone, but the shape just does not seem natural. Lost Cuban city. In 2001, sonar equipment found something strange off the west coast of Cuba. The sonar readings simply made no sense. The sonar equipment said there were large, symmetrical and geometric shapes on the sea's floor. Divers went to the site and were astonished. They found large blocks of stone. These large stone blocks were stacked on top of each other like pyramids. Experts are not sure if these are man-made. If they are, then it would challenge lots of what we know about the world. That's because if they were man-made, they would have been built around 50,000 years ago. This was long before anything like this had been built anywhere else. Over 2 decades later, we still don't know the truth behind this lost Cuban city. What do you guys think? Yonaguni Monument. In the 1980s, divers discovered something strange in the waters of Japan. They found what appeared to be a gigantic temple. They found the ruins of pillars, columns, and even a star-shaped platform. At first, they assumed it was natural, but after inspecting carvings in the stone, they realized it must have been man-made. It's believed this monument was part of a civilization that existed thousands of years ago. But after sea levels rose following the last ice age, the city was submerged underwater. Ancient computer. The Antikythera mechanism is said to be the oldest computer in the world, at least in an ancient sense. It was built all the way back in 2nd century BC. So why is this mechanism called a computer? Well, it's a mechanism that can track years and passing stars. Its design is so complex, many believe that humans did not create it. The device was discovered in 1901 by divers off the coast of a Greek island. To this day, it's still being studied by engineers, astronomers, and historians. Lost Indian City. In 2001, ruins of an ancient city were found off the coast of India. The discovery was named the ruins of the Gulf of Combat. Divers found man-made geometric structures and stones arranged in complex patterns. The city even had its own drainage system that was very advanced for its time. It's believed the civilization that built this predates all other civilizations of the Indian subcontinent. Bimini Road. Off the coast of the Bahamas, a discovery was made that changed how we think about ancient civilizations. It turns out they were likely much more advanced than we think. The Bimini Road is made up of many stones, all lined up with one another. It's believed this was a breakwater constructed by an ancient civilization, and the breakwater was likely made to protect an ancient lost city. These discoveries really prove that we're not as smart as we think we are. And we really don't know much about our own planet at all. We're discovering new things all the time. And seeing as 95% of the Earth's waters are unexplored, I think we'll find a lot more. Alligator. Imagine this. It's 4 in the morning, and you're woken up by a splashing noise outside. You go out to your backyard to inspect the noise. But instead of finding kids pool hopping, you see a gigantic alligator. That's what happened to the owners of a house in Florida in 2018. The alligator was a massive 10 feet in length. The family was terrified, so they rushed back inside. They immediately called an alligator expert to come and remove the massive creature from their pool. While they were waiting, they took many photos and videos and posted them to social media. The terrifying sight went viral. Eventually, the Animal Rescue Service showed up, and it took them 6 hours to get the alligator out of the pool. After all, alligators can be incredibly dangerous, and even experts need to handle them with great care. Eventually, the alligator was sent to a special farm, but the family were left too scared to use their pool for many weeks. Money bag. Wayne Savage was an unemployed carpenter. One day he was in his backyard in Illinois. He was gardening, picking some broccoli he'd planted. But that's when beneath the earth he found a bag. When he looked inside, he realized his bad luck had changed. Inside the bag was $150,000. But Wayne was a good and honest man. He did not simply take the money, but instead reported it to the police. The police told him that if no one claims it by the end of 2012, then Wayne could keep the money. But soon after, Wayne's neighbor Dolores Johnson said that the money was hers. His 87-year-old neighbor said that she'd buried the money because it was haunted. Eventually, the case went to court, and the judge said that Wayne deserves the money. But just 10 days before claiming the money, Wayne passed away from diabetes. The judge then said that his neighbor Dolores Johnson should get the money, but she also passed away before she could claim it. So maybe she was right all along and the money was actually cursed. After all, the two people who were set to receive it both passed away. In the end, half of the money went to Wayne's son, and the other half went to Dolores' daughter. Let's hope they're both safe and don't meet the same fate as their parents. Missile. One day, a woman named Linda DeForest was gardening. She had only recently moved into the house, but when she was clearing out the garden, she noticed a strange object buried in the dirt. She soon realized it was an artillery shell. At first, Linda assumed it was merely a casing. But luckily, Linda's neighbor Joshua Blankenship was a war veteran. Joshua was able to inspect the projectile, and he quickly realized that it had not been neutralized. This meant the explosive could go off at any time. Linda immediately called the police, and they sent a bomb disposal unit. The missile was taken to a safe place and was blown up. But to this day, it's still unknown how a missile ended up in a normal suburban backyard. Nuclear bunker. In 2013, a family in Wisconsin found something strange in their backyard. In their backyard, they found a mysterious metal door. When they cleared some shrubbery, they found out that it was a nuclear bunker. It was a very large and fully stocked fallout shelter. These bunkers were pretty popular in the 1960s. This was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Many Americans believed the Soviet Union was going to nuke the USA, so that's why many families purchased nuclear bunkers. Most of these have since been destroyed, but the Wisconsin family who found this were stunned. They actually waited a few years before going down into the bunker. There could be scary animals living down there, but one day their curiosity was just too much to contain. They went down and had a look around. They found food, cleaning products, candles, and more. Basically anything you would need to survive nuclear fallout. Mystery giant egg. In 2015, a man from Argentina named Jose was in his backyard. That was when he noticed a strange object. It was in the canal that backed onto his yard. He thought it looked like a meteorite or a dinosaur egg. Jose went back inside his house and told his family what he'd seen. But when he said he'd found a dinosaur egg, his whole family laughed. The object was covered in mud, but Jose eventually dug it out. Eventually, Jose called experts to examine the specimen. They determined that it was not an egg, but instead the shell of an extinct animal. The shell was that of a Glyptodont. Glyptodonts died out over 12,000 years ago. The shell was in great condition. That's because it had been preserved in clay soil for many years. Gold coins. You never know, you might have untold riches hidden in your backyard. That was the case for one San Francisco couple in 2014. Under a tree in their backyard, they found many gold coins. Their discovery is considered the best treasure find in US history. There were 1,500 of these coins, and they were solid gold. In total, the coins were worth $10 million. Snake's Den. In 2009, Ben and Amber Sessions moved into a new house in Idaho, USA. They moved in and they were liking their house. But their dream home soon turned into a nightmare. In their backyard, they discovered many snakes. These snakes soon began to infest their house. In one day, Ben had to kill 43 snakes. Snakes were in every room of their house and even inside their walls. At night, the couple would hear rustling sounds as snakes slithered inside their walls. It turned out the house's previous owners knew about the snake dens in the backyard, but they did not tell Ben and Amber before they moved in, and in the end, Ben and Amber moved out. Ancient skeleton. We all know Native American burial grounds can sometimes be considered cursed. That's why a Canadian couple were scared when they discovered one in their backyard. They first found an ancient skeleton, and as they began to dig more and more, they found an entire burial ground. It turned out the skeleton had been in the earth for 1,600 years. Mastodon bones. In 2012, two boys named Eric and Andrew from Michigan were playing in their backyard. That's when they found a strange-looking rock in their backyard. But they soon realized it was not a rock, but instead an animal bone. They showed it to their dad, who is a doctor. He confirmed it was a bone, but not one that he recognized. So they called a paleontologist to examine the bone. It was later revealed that it was part of a neck bone of a mastodon. The bone was a whopping 13,000 years old. Mastodons were gigantic animals that lived in America during the Miocene. They are very similar to the woolly mammoth, and this bone was an amazing find. But now it's time for you to make your voice heard. Comment below which was the most amazing find in this video. If you want some more amazing videos, then check out my second channel. But as always, thanks for watching. There are some more videos on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, then what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.